Your learning platform says the learner logged in, opened the lesson, submitted the assignment, passed the quiz, and completed the course. But what if the learner did almost none of that? I am not talking about someone improving one paragraph with a chatbot. I mean an AI agent operating the browser, moving through a course or learning pathway, following instructions, and completing a sequence of tasks. When that becomes possible, a completion tick still proves that something happened inside the platform. It may no longer prove that a human learned. For the last few years, the debate focused on content generation. Could a learner use AI to write an essay, answer a question, create a presentation, or finish a workplace assignment? AI agents change the unit of automation. Instead of producing one answer, an agent can potentially perform an entire workflow. Moodle offers a useful case study for the wider LMS and LXP market. In April 2026, Moodle highlighted this shift from AI that generates to AI that acts. Its article described agents as systems that can move through platforms, complete tasks, and follow multi-step instructions. Moodle also argued that agents are not necessarily invisible because their behavior can differ from normal human interaction. That is important for every learning platform. But detection solves only part of the problem. In the Moodle case, an agent detection plugin from Cursive shows what an extensible learning platform can make possible. According to the companies involved, the tool examines 5 types of signals: writing behavior, interaction patterns, browser fingerprinting, prompt injection activity, and server-side requests. Similar approaches could help LMS or LXP administrators identify sessions that deserve a closer look. But an unusual pattern is not the same thing as proof of misconduct. A learner using assistive technology may behave differently. A slow connection may produce irregular events. Privacy tools may change browser signals. And a technically skilled learner may simply work in an unexpected way. Detection must be treated as an indicator for human review, not an automatic verdict. Detection also creates a governance question for every learning platform. The more closely we fingerprint behavior to separate humans from agents, the more carefully we must examine privacy, proportionality, retention, access, and learner rights. An AI detection arms race can generate more data. It cannot by itself prove learning. Completion data is useful across an LMS or LXP. It can record a resource view, a grade, a submission, a contribution, progress through a pathway, or another configured event. But those signals were not designed to prove a learner's identity, reasoning, or long-term capability. Moodle makes this distinction unusually clear because its documentation describes course completion as a reporting feature. The broader lesson is simple. The mistake is not using completion data. The mistake is asking it to prove more than it can. Level 1 is a system event. The page was viewed, the post was submitted, or the quiz received a grade. Level 2 is participation. We have reasonable evidence that the learner engaged in the process. Level 3 is capability. The learner can explain, apply, adapt, or perform the skill without outsourcing the essential thinking. Completion is strong at level 1. Detection may add evidence at level 2. Neither automatically delivers level 3. Before an organization adds another detection tool to its learning platform, it needs a clear answer to a simpler question. What kind of learner-agent collaboration is acceptable here? If the goal is to research, evaluate evidence, and make a decision, agent assistance may be acceptable when the learner verifies sources and discloses the help. If the goal is independent calculation, clinical judgment, safety procedure, language fluency, or another protected capability, delegating the performance may invalidate the evidence. For routine administrative tasks, agent assistance may be entirely reasonable. A useful policy, therefore, does not simply say AI allowed or AI banned. It defines which human capability must remain visible, what assistance may be used, what must be disclosed, and how the learner will verify the result. The durable response is assessment redesign. Start by replacing the single polished submission with an evidence chain. Ask for a short plan before the final response. Capture 1 or 2 decision points. Require the learner to identify what changed and why. Add a brief reflection on the evidence they accepted, rejected, or verified. For higher stakes work, include a short oral follow-up, live demonstration, practical performance, or personalized scenario. The goal is not to interrogate every learner. It is to make the important capability observable. You can also ask learners to critique an AI-generated answer. Where is it weak? What assumption fails? What changes in a different context? An LMS or LXP can connect assignments, quizzes, discussions, peer review, live sessions, portfolios, skills evidence, and external tools. Moodle is one practical example of this approach. No single activity proves learning. The strength comes from connecting multiple forms of evidence. Here is what stronger evidence looks like. Modern Video Player and Modern Flipbook are Moodle activity plugins available in the Moodle marketplace. Modern Video Player tracks watched segments and controls seeking and playback speed before validating completion. Modern Flipbook turns PDFs into tracked activities, recording pages viewed, reading time, progress, and acknowledgement. From a compliance standpoint, together they create a more defensible record of learner engagement. That data can then support reflection, knowledge checks, or practical tasks that make human capability visible. Here is a practical starting plan. First, audit where your organization treats platform activity or completion as proof of competence, especially in certification, mandatory training, gateway assessments, skills profiles, and automated progression. Second, classify activities by risk. A resource view does not need the same controls as a final clinical or technical assessment. Third, write an agent use standard in plain language. Define acceptable assistance, disclosure, prohibited delegation, and the consequences of uncertainty. Fourth, redesign a small number of high-value assessments. Fifth, establish human review and appeal before enforcement. AI agents do not make the LMS or LXP useless. Platform data still helps learners navigate, helps educators and managers monitor progress, and helps organizations report activity. But a completion signal is evidence that a configured condition was met. If an agent can complete an assessment or pathway without the learner developing the intended capability, the learner may not be the only problem. The learning design may be measuring the wrong thing. So the strategic question is not, can a platform catch every AI agent? It is, what evidence would convince us that this human can actually think, decide, and perform? Where would AI agent activity create the greatest risk in your organization? Assessment, compliance training, skills verification, or everyday learning activity? We are a learning technology company trusted by leading organizations and financial institutions across Africa and beyond, including 5 of Africa's 20 largest banks. We deliver enterprise learning platforms, Moodle solutions, and premium plugins. We also develop e-learning courses, integrate HR software, and build mobile learning apps. Like, share, and leave a comment. To work with us, use the contact link in our bio.